Okay, this is question of the day number 3. This is a follow-up of how to respond to haters and critics. Um, so basically, I tested out the thing for a little bit. I thought it was pretty good. Basically, let's say someone has a question, and let's say someone has a negative comment on YouTube. How I'll then respond is clarifying the question. No, responding back. Okay, so let's say someone says, "Oh, dude, I'm having like a brain fart right now." Okay, let's say someone says, "Your video is too loud and the music is too long and blah 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 blah, and you really should stop wearing blue." So how I'd respond, how normal people would be like, "Okay, thank you for your comment. Take it up the ass," whatever, you know. How I would say is, "So you're saying that the music is too loud, the text is too small, and I shouldn't be wearing blue?" And that would be my response. And they would, if they want, they would just like, "Yes, that's what I'm saying." And I'm like, "Okay, that's it." So it's basically just acknowledging their comment. I'm not saying thank you for your criticism. No, fuck you. I'm just saying like, okay, I'm acknowledging you. And for me personally, it's kind of like meditation. It's just like, okay, that's a comment. It's not true. It may be true. It may or may not be true. But I'm acknowledging that you said something. And that's a lot of times what people want. However, there is a drawback. Some people have said that this is a really passive-aggressive approach. I think it's pretty good. For me, on YouTube, it's worked great. But on Facebook, it falls apart. Because for some reason on Facebook, it's like they love to debate and argue. Some people on Facebook, because it's a lot easier for them than signing in on YouTube, and it's a lot more user friendly on Facebook to have a discussion than on YouTube to have a discussion. YouTube is like still kind of hard with like the comment system and everything. It's not quite up there yet as Facebook. But anyways, on Facebook, people respond really quickly, and what I got was a lot of rambling. And so the situation was like, "Hey, like your approach is actually really passive aggressive and it sounds really condescending, whatever, blah blah blah." So then I would be like, "Okay, time to use the same trick again." I'll be like, "So you're saying that I'm condescending and passive aggressive?" Question mark, and that's it. And then they would respond with even more. They'd get even more mad. So what I realized is, if the comment that they're asking is really general, let's say someone is saying the sky is blue, and you're saying like the sky is red, and then you respond, "Oh shoot." Okay, let's say someone says, "You are being very unclear," and I say, "You think that I'm being really unclear?" Question mark, and that's fine. But if someone has a condescending thing, like saying like, "Okay, the KonMari method is a piece of shit, and you should consult librarians on how to document books and professional clothes people from Old Navy to do stuff, blah, 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 and you should do this, and this is why the KonMari method sucks." And I were to rephrase that sentence exactly, word by word, by saying like, "Oh, okay, so you are telling me, you are saying that I should consult people from Old Navy to fold my clothes, and you think the KonMari method is a piece of shit, and blah blah." If I'm reflecting everything that they say, all their negativity, it becomes really aggressive. Not intentionally. It's just that when you have a lion and you reflect the picture of a lion back, then you're taking on their aggression. And so that method doesn't work the best in that kind of situation. You'd have to like maybe tone it down a bit with maybe some smiley faces or LOLs or some shit, or saying like "thank you for your opinion," so it doesn't appear as aggressive. What else? Or something new I'm trying out is the whole act of clarification, being specific, and understanding their backstory. Almost everyone has some kind of backstory when they have an emotionally charged opinion, okay? And I think the key is to understand their backstory and acknowledge that. Sometimes you don't need to acknowledge their opinion, you need to acknowledge their backstory. And so let's see. So on YouTube, I was talking about this, and someone was saying like, that's a really condescending thing on YouTube, and then I asked about what is your experience with this, and then it drew out his backstory. His backstory was he is basically like a beginner artist, and he has YouTube videos as well, and a lot of people hate on his ability because he's teaching, but he's a beginner, you know, kind of like me. I'm like a beginner too, in terms of like life coaching and stuff, right? And like people are hating, and he's saying like what happens to him is he would try to be as polite and professional as possible even though he's hurt, you know, and that's his backstory, and that's the way he feels it should be. So after hearing that backstory, I'm like, yo, geez, sorry man, like I'm I'm sad to hear that a lot of people have wrote negative comments about you, and you know, and you have to be so professional, and it's all a ruse, is what he said, and he has to kind of fake it, even though he's sad. He needs to feign professionalism. But in the end, after I acknowledged his backstory, I was like, you know, thank you for your suggestion, but I might go a different route. And it wasn't just about acknowledging his opinion, it was about acknowledging his backstory. Another example was when I was on Facebook and we were talking about gays and like rights and stuff, of course, and Christianity and stuff. And there was this girl with her own backstory, and she was really aggressive with this, you know. It was really emotionally charged. And her backstory was like, oh, she is Christian and she's homosexual. So it's like conflicting for herself. But yeah, it definitely didn't end well with this interaction just because it was so emotionally charged. And I was not as sympathetic to her thing just because she was really aggressive. Basically, I was trying to talk about, so the backstory was, there was this cartoon that was really homophobic, and I'm saying like, let's say you don't want to work on the cartoon because Christians are homophobic. If you categorize Christians as homophobic, are you being a bigot yourself? You know? So I'm kind of questioning like, hey, like a lot of people are putting down Christians because they're really conservative and homophobic. And I'm saying like, well, what about people who are Muslim, right? Kind of like, you know how there's an irrational fear of Americans against Muslims? And like people are scared as shit when they see someone in a turban. And I'm like, is that discrimination too? Is that bigotry? When you say someone who is Christian and you're like, oh, you conservative freak, you know, you guys are so non-progressive and you guys are intolerant of other culture. You know, there's people who are like that. And I think, yeah, whatever. Anyways, another example is when I was talking with my mom, right? And this is about being specific in the backstory, right? And she was saying, oh my god, no one helps me around the house and I'm so tired all the time and stuff like that. And then at first I was angry because I was like, I help around the house. You know, I just folded the laundry yesterday and I did this and I did that. And I calmed down and I got specific. And I was like, are you talking about Dad? And she was like, yeah, you know, he doesn't help me and blah, 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 blah. And he left me with all this work. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'll help you. Because at first I thought she was complaining about me. But when I got specific, like, well, what is exactly you're complaining about? Oh, not me? Okay, then I'll help you. Okay? And then it was fine. Another example was someone was talking about paying a VAT tax when I was shipping some things to her, and she was freaking out about like, oh, there's gonna be like so much tax and it's gonna be a lot of money, and you know, like I need you to, you know, fake this form for me and then I was like, man, this is like so much trouble plus illegal. And then after a while I was like, hey, you know, like, so your VAT tax is 20%, right? And this thing's $20, so you're worrying about paying $5? You know, is this correct? And she was like, well, if it's only $5, it's really not that much. And that's the whole thing about being specific, is when you're in an argument with someone, you know, it pays to be like, okay, exactly what are we talking about here? What is the backstory? What are the specifics of the issue? Like, we're talking about money. Exactly how much money are you afraid of losing out? And yeah, to summarize the video, is the reflection technique in question of the day number 1 can be passive aggressive, can be really aggressive sounding if you are talking to a person who's very emotionally charged. And if someone's really emotionally charged, maybe ask about the specifics and the backstory and why this person feels that way. Okay,